Captain Tom Miller stood tall, adjusting his freshly pressed uniform as he and his crew waited in the massive docking bay of Starbase Alpha. This was a historic moment, the first time humans would receive an official ship from the Galactic Council since Earth joined the interstellar community just 3 years ago. "Do you think it will have quantum drives?" asked Jack, the young navigation officer who couldn't stop bouncing on his heels. "I heard it might be a Trellix-class cruiser," said Maria, the weapons specialist. "Those things can outrun light itself." Tom smiled at his crew's excitement. They had all been handpicked, the best Earth had to offer. After years of proving themselves in smaller roles aboard alien vessels, they would finally have their own command. "Whatever it is," Tom said, "we'll make humanity proud." The massive doors at the far end of the hangar slid open with a deep mechanical groan. A delegation of aliens entered, led by Ambassador Brix of the Lyrian species. Brix was tall and thin with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the hangar lights. Like all Lyrians, he had 3 pairs of eyes arranged vertically on his face, and all 6 were currently looking down at the humans with barely hidden smugness. "Captain Miller," Brix said, his translator making his words sound unnaturally flat. "The Galactic Council welcomes you. We are pleased to present Earth with its first official vessel." Tom noticed the pause but kept his face neutral. Behind the delegation, a large sheet covered something. Whatever was underneath seemed oddly shaped, not the sleek lines of a modern vessel. "On behalf of humanity, we're honored to accept," Tom replied formally. Brix made a gesture, and the sheet was pulled away. The humans' excited murmurs died instantly. Before them sat what could only be described as junk. The ship was an old transport vessel, its hull patched in dozens of places with mismatched metal. One of its 4 engine pods was visibly cracked. The name painted on its side, Discarded Hope, was faded and peeling. "This is," Tom started, then caught himself. "This is our ship." "Indeed," said Brix, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "The Discarded Hope has served the Galactic Coalition for over 70 years. It was due to be decommissioned, but we thought it would make a perfect learning opportunity for your species." Jack's face had fallen. Maria's hand was on her sidearm, though Tom doubted she even realized it. A reflexive response to insult. "It's barely spaceworthy," said Mike, the chief engineer, speaking what everyone was thinking. His practiced eye was already cataloging the countless fixes the ship would need. "The life support systems look ancient." "They are functional," Brix replied. "Mostly." Another alien from the delegation, a squat 4-armed being named Gorks, chuckled. "Perhaps humans aren't ready for interstellar travel after all. If this simple vessel is too challenging, we accept with gratitude." Tom interrupted, his voice firm. The crew looked at him with surprise, but he gave them a subtle hand signal. "Trust me." Brix seemed disappointed by the lack of protest. "Very well. This ship is yours. The Council has provided basic supplies and a manual for the more unusual systems. You have 1 Earth month to make it operational and begin your assigned patrols." "1 month," Mike whispered. "We'd need 3 just to." "1 month will be perfect," Tom said loudly. "We look forward to showing what humans can do with this fine vessel." The delegation departed, several of them failing to hide their amusement. As soon as the doors closed, the crew erupted. "Captain, this is an insult," Maria said. "They've given us garbage." "We should go to the human ambassador," suggested Wren, the communications specialist. "File a formal complaint." Tom walked up to the ship and placed his hand on the cold, pitted hull. "No," he said quietly. "That's exactly what they expect." "Sir?" Jack asked. Tom turned to face his crew. In his eyes burned a fierce determination that made even Maria step back. "They think we'll complain. They think we'll beg for something better or give up entirely. That's what they want. Proof that humans don't belong out here." He began walking around the ship, examining it more closely. "Look at this hull," Cerulean metal. Older, yes, but nearly impossible to scan through with standard sensors. And these engine mounts, he pointed to what looked like damage. They're modified Vulcan thrusters, primitive by their standards, but incredibly reliable. Mike stepped forward, his engineer's curiosity overtaking his disappointment. The power core looks intact, actually. Old design, but if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the marathon cores. Not fast to charge, but nearly unlimited endurance. Tom smiled. Exactly. They didn't give us a fancy ship. They gave us a foundation. But sir, Maria protested, even if we get it running, we'll be laughed at everywhere we go. Good, Tom replied. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate us. Throughout human history, our greatest achievements have come when others thought we would fail. He gathered his crew in a circle, their faces still showing doubt, but now mixed with curiosity. They gave us scrap because they don't respect us. But they've forgotten something important about humans. We've always been at our best when working with scrap. We built our first planes from bicycle parts, our first satellites from leftover war technology. Tom's voice grew stronger, and one by one, his crew stood straighter. We won't just make this ship functional. We'll make it ours. We'll make it human. And one day, the Galactic Council will look at what we've done with their cast-offs and wonder what they've unleashed. Jack was the first to grin. So where do we start, Captain? Tom turned to the ship, his eyes gleaming with purpose. Mike, get a team and start assessing that power core. Maria, I want you to think about defensive options, creative ones. Ren, download everything you can about this model, official and unofficial. Jack, help me plot out the internal spaces. I want to see what we're working with. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Tom stood a moment longer, looking at the battered vessel. The name Discarded Hope seemed to mock them. We should rename her, he murmured to himself. Something fitting. He thought of the old naval traditions from Earth's history, of ships beating the odds, of underdogs rising to greatness. Phoenix, he decided. From Earth mythology, the bird that rises from ashes. He placed his hand again on the hull, feeling the cold metal, imagining what it could become. They gave us scrap, he whispered. We'll show them what humans can build from ashes. Behind him, his crew was already at work, the sound of tools and voices filling the hangar with purpose. The first step of their journey had begun, and despite everything, Tom felt a surge of excitement. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. 3 days after receiving the Discarded Hope, the hangar bay looked like a war zone. Ship parts were scattered everywhere, panels removed from walls, and the constant sound of welding and hammering filled the air. In the middle of it all stood Mike, covered in grease up to his elbows, staring at the ship's power core with a mixture of frustration and amazement. Captain, you need to see this, he called out as Tom walked by with a tablet full of reports. Tom ducked under a hanging cable and joined his chief engineer. What am I looking at, Mike? Mike pointed to the cylindrical power core that took up a large part of the engine room. This isn't junk. This is a Helion-5 core. They stopped making these 30 years ago, but not because they were bad. Then why? Because they're too good. Mike wiped his hands on a rag. These cores are nearly indestructible. They can run for decades without maintenance, but they have one problem. They're inefficient by modern standards. Tom raised an eyebrow. How inefficient? They use about 30% more fuel than newer models. So the big companies stopped making them to sell their fancy new cores that need replacing every 5 years. Mike grinned. But if someone were to fix the efficiency problem, could you do it? Tom asked. Mike tapped the core with his knuckle. Already started. I'm reconfiguring the power distribution system. With some human ingenuity, I think we can make this old core run better than anything in the Council's fleet. Tom clapped him on the shoulder. That's what I like to hear. On the other side of the ship, Maria had turned the cargo bay into a makeshift workshop. She was examining what looked like a large cargo door. "What's all this?" Tom asked, stepping around various tools and parts. Maria looked up from her work. Their idea of a shield generator was pathetic. "So I'm making the new one. Out of cargo doors." "These aren't ordinary doors, Captain. They're made of tri-steel with reflective coating. The aliens used them for radiation protection during long hauls, but with some modifications." She flipped a switch, and the door panel began to hum with energy. "They can deflect energy weapons too." Tom watched as she fired a small test laser at the panel. The beam bounced off harmlessly. "It won't stop a direct hit from a military vessel," Maria admitted, "but it'll give us some protection. And the best part, our shield signature will read as cargo bay doors on most scans." Tom smiled. "Hiding in plain sight. I like it." In what would become the bridge, Jack and Wren were installing old-style manual control systems alongside the ship's original computer interfaces. "Why are you adding physical controls?" Tom asked. "Aren't neural interfaces faster?" Jack looked up from under the console. "Faster, yes, but also easier to hack or disrupt. These physical controls are from Earth's old space program. Simple, reliable, and completely unfamiliar to most alien tech experts." Wren added, "We're also installing a backup navigation system based on star tracking, like ancient sailors used. If all our fancy tech fails, we can still find our way home." Day by day, the ship transformed. What had started as an insult was becoming something unique. Neither human nor alien, but a hybrid that combined the best of both worlds. On the 10th day, Ambassador Briggs returned with several council observers. They walked through the ship with poorly concealed disdain. "You've made changes," Briggs noted, watching a crew member install what looked like an Earth kitchen appliance into a control panel. "Improvements," Tom corrected. "We're adapting the ship to our needs." One of the observers, a tall insectoid being, chittered something that the translator rendered as, "Are those physical buttons? How primitive." Mike, who was passing by with a toolbox, smiled politely. "Sometimes primitive is reliable, and reliability matters when you're floating in space." Brick stopped at what had once been a storage closet. Now it contained plants, actual earth plants growing in containers. "What is this?" he asked, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly. "Supplemental life support," answered Dr. Lee, the ship's medical officer. "These plants clean our air and provide fresh food. They also help with crew morale." "Plants on a starship," another observer laughed. "Inefficient and unnecessary." Dr. Lee just smiled. "We find them quite necessary." As the tour continued, Briggs became increasingly agitated. "Captain Miller, these modifications may violate council regulations. That power core configuration has not been approved. Those shield emplacements are not standard. This, whatever this is," he pointed to a device cobbled together from spare parts. "Water recycler," Tom explained. 98% efficiency. "The point is," Briggs continued, "the council expected you to learn how to operate a standard vessel, not rebuild it according to human whims." Tom stopped walking and faced the ambassador directly. "With all respect, Ambassador, you gave us a decommissioned vessel that barely functioned. We're making it work. Isn't that the point?" "The point was to see if humans could adapt to galactic standards," Briggs replied coldly. "And we are adapting them to work better." Tom gestured around. "Everything we've done improves this ship's functionality while maintaining compatibility with council systems." The delegation left shortly after, clearly unhappy with what they'd seen. As the hangar doors closed behind them, the crew gathered around Tom. "They're going to try to stop us, aren't they?" Maria asked. Tom nodded. "They'll probably add more inspections and requirements. But we'll keep working." "We've only got 20 more days until our deadline," Mike reminded him. "Then we work faster," Tom replied. "Double shifts. I want this ship ready to fly in 15 days, not 30. As the crew dispersed to their tasks with renewed purpose, Tom walked to the front of the ship. The old name had been removed, and a crew member was carefully painting the new one. Phoenix. They think we're just making a mess, Tom said to no one in particular. They don't understand that this is what humans do best. We take pieces that don't fit together and make something new. He touched the freshly painted name, careful not to smudge it. We're not just rebuilding a ship, he whispered. We're making history. Behind him, the sounds of construction continued late into the night. The Phoenix was taking shape, piece by mismatched piece, becoming something the Galactic Council never intended. A ship with a human heart. The Phoenix cut through space on its first official patrol, 3 days ahead of the Council's deadline. From the outside, it still looked like a patched-together transport vessel, its hull a mismatched collection of metals and components. But inside, it hummed with efficiency and purpose. Captain Tom sat in the command chair on the bridge, watching his crew work with pride. They had done the impossible. Turned scrap into a functioning starship with capabilities no one would suspect. Status report, he called out. All systems running smoothly, Captain, reported Mike from the engineering station. Power core operating at 110% of standard capacity. Shield doors ready on standby. Maria added from tactical. Weapons systems, well, what we're calling weapons systems, are online. Tom smiled at that. They had no official weapons, the Council hadn't authorized any. But Maria had repurposed mining equipment, waste disposal units, and even the ship's old cargo magnetizers into something that could, in a pinch, serve as defense. We're approaching Sector 7, Jack announced from navigation. Standard patrol route as assigned. Sector 7 was quiet space, a trading route far from any important Council worlds. It was busy enough with merchant traffic, but considered safe and routine. Perfect for a test run of humanity's first official ship. Captain, Wren called from communications. I'm picking up a distress signal. Merchant vessel, about half a light year from our position. Tom straightened in his chair. Details. They're reporting an attack. Pirates, by the sound of it. Wren adjusted her equipment. Council protocol says we should report it and wait for an authorized military vessel. The bridge fell silent as all eyes turned to Tom. They knew what Council protocol said. They also knew what humanity would do. How long would it take an authorized military vessel to reach them? Tom asked. Jack checked his instruments. Nearest patrol is 3 hours away at maximum speed. And how long would it take us? 20 minutes, sir. Tom nodded, his decision made. Set course for that merchant vessel, maximum speed. Maria, prepare your non-weapons. Wren, inform the Council of our response. Sir, Maria said carefully, if we engage pirates, we'll be violating at least 3 Council regulations. Then we better not get caught, Tom replied with a grim smile. Or better yet, we better succeed. The Phoenix changed course, its engines pushing harder than any standard Council vessel of its class should be able to. Mike had worked wonders with the old power core, channeling its energy through human-designed systems that squeezed every drop of power from it. Coming up on the coordinates, Jack announced 15 minutes later. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The view screen showed chaos. A bulky merchant ship was listing badly, its engines dark. Circling it were 3 sleek, predatory vessels. Pirate ships known for hitting easy targets and disappearing before Council forces could respond. They'd already disabled the merchant's engines, Maria reported. Life support still functioning, but they're cutting into the cargo hold. Wren, open a channel, Tom ordered. When she nodded, he spoke clearly. Attention, pirate vessels. This is Captain Tom Miller of the Earth ship Phoenix. Cease your attack and withdraw immediately. A harsh laugh came over the comms. Earth ship, the new pets of the Council. The pirate's voice was translated through a basic system, the words choppy. Go away, little humans. This is not your business. I'm making it our business, Tom replied calmly. Last warning. The pirate didn't bother to respond. Instead, one of the ships broke off from the merchant vessel and turned toward the Phoenix, weapons charging. "They're targeting us," Maria announced, tension in her voice. "Energy weapons powering up." "Shield doors," Tom ordered. Maria activated her makeshift defense system. The cargo bay doors, now charged with energy-deflecting fields, deployed strategically around the ship's vulnerable areas. From the outside, it looked like the Phoenix was simply opening some compartments. Nothing threatening. The pirate ship fired, confident in an easy kill. The energy beam struck one of the shield doors and scattered. Most of its force dissipated harmlessly into space. "Minimal damage," Mike reported, surprise in his voice. "Maria, your shield doors actually worked." "Don't sound so shocked," she replied, grinning. The pirate fired again, a more powerful shot. This time, the shield door absorbed most of the impact, but began to overheat. "We can't take too many of those," Maria warned. Tom nodded. "Then let's not give them the chance." "Mike, vent atmosphere from port side chambers. Control bursts." "Sir?" Mike questioned, then understanding dawned. "Oh, yes, sir." Mike activated the emergency venting system that humans had installed. Carefully calculated bursts of air shot from the Phoenix's side, the force pushing the ship into a spin that no proper council vessel would ever perform. The pirate's next shot missed entirely, its targeting computers unable to predict the unorthodox movement. "Now, Maria," Tom ordered as they spun toward the pirate ship. "Show them our mining equipment." Maria activated what had once been a standard mining laser, used for breaking down asteroids. The humans had modified it, focusing its beam to a much narrower point. It wasn't designed as a weapon, officially, but when the beam struck the pirate ship's engine housing, it cut through the metal like it was paper. The pirate ship lurched, its engines failing. The other two pirates, seeing their companion disabled, broke off their attack on the merchant vessel and moved to engage the Phoenix. "They're coordinating," Maria warned, "coming at us from both sides." "Perfect," Tom said, surprising his crew. "Jack, full stop. Mike, prepare for full emergency vent, all chambers." "Sir, that'll drain our atmosphere reserves," Mike cautioned. "We'll refill them." "On my mark. Now." The Phoenix suddenly vented atmosphere from all sides at once, creating a pressurized bubble that rippled outward. The pirate ships, closing in fast, flew right into it. Their sleek designs, built for speed and predatory attacks, were thrown off course by the unexpected space disturbance. "Maria, cargo magnetizers, full power." Maria activated the modified cargo systems. Originally designed to help load heavy metal containers, the humans had turned them into powerful magnetic projectors. The beams locked onto the metal hulls of the pirate ships, pulling them toward each other. Before they could compensate, the two vessels collided with a silent crash that sent debris floating across the view screen. All three pirate ships disabled, Maria reported, her voice filled with disbelief at their own success. Tom stood up from his chair. "Ren, contact the merchant vessel. See if they need medical assistance. Then inform the council that we've responded to a distress call and require cleanup of 3 disabled pirate ships." As the crew carried out his orders, a sense of stunned silence filled the bridge, soon replaced by growing excitement. "We did it," Jack said quietly. "We actually did it." Tom nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "Yes, we did. And with a ship made of scrap." 3 hours later, when the council military vessels finally arrived, they found the Phoenix helping repair the merchant ship's engines. The pirates were contained, their ships disabled but intact for evidence. The council commander, a stern reptilian being, was clearly confused by what he found. "You engaged 3 pirate vessels. With that?" he asked Tom, pointing at the Phoenix with one clawed hand. "We responded to a distress call," Tom answered simply, "as any council vessel should." The commander studied the mismatched ship and its human crew with new eyes. "The council will want a full report on how this happened. Of course, Tom said. Though I should warn you, some of our methods might be considered unconventional. As the military vessels took charge of the pirates and the Phoenix prepared to continue its patrol, Tom gathered his crew on the bridge. Today, we showed the galaxy something important, he told them quietly. Not that humans can fight. Any species can fight. We showed them that we can think differently, see solutions where others see only junk. He looked around at their proud faces. They gave us scrap. We made it fly. They'll remember that. What none of them knew was how quickly word would spread through the merchant lanes and trading posts. Stories of the odd human ship that fought like no other vessel in the galaxy. The story of the Phoenix had just begun. 2 months after the pirate incident, the Phoenix had developed quite a reputation. What started as whispers among merchant crews had grown into stories told in spaceports across 3 sectors. Some tales were exaggerated. No, the ship couldn't turn invisible, and it definitely couldn't split into 2 separate vessels. But the core truth remained. The human scrap ship was surprisingly effective. The Council, of course, was less impressed. Captain Tom had been called to explain his reckless actions 3 separate times. Each time, he patiently pointed out that he had simply responded to a distress call, as any responsible Council vessel should. They can't decide if they should punish us or study us, Tom told his crew one evening as they gathered in what they now called the garden, the expanded plant room that had become their unofficial meeting space. Mike laughed. They sent 2 engineers last week to inspect our power core modifications. They spent 3 hours taking notes. And that military attaché who wanted to see our weapons systems, Maria added. His face when I showed him our modified mining equipment was priceless. The crew's laughter was interrupted by Wren's voice over the ship's comm. Captain to the bridge. Priority message coming in from Council Command. Tom exchanged glances with his officers. Duty calls. When they reached the bridge, Wren was at her station, her expression serious. It's a general broadcast to all vessels, sir, but it's coded urgent. On screen, Tom ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing a stern-faced Council admiral, a thorn species, with ridged skin and sharp features. Attention all Council vessels. This is Admiral Cord with an emergency directive. The Drachnor Collective has launched a surprise attack on the Centauri trade route. All available ships are ordered to report to Sector 12 to form a defense line. The crew exchanged shocked glances. The Drachnor were a secretive species from the Outer Rim, known for their advanced technology and isolationist policies. They weren't officially enemies of the Council, but relations had always been tense. The Drachnor fleet consists of approximately 30 vessels of unknown configuration, the Admiral continued. They have already disabled 3 Council outposts and have established a blockade preventing supply ships from reaching the outer colonies. This is a Level 1 emergency. All available ships report to these coordinates. Admiral Corvout. The message ended, replaced by a set of coordinates flashing on the screen. The Centauri trade route, Jack said quietly. That's the main supply line to 17 colonies. Tom nodded, his expression grim. Wren, acknowledge the order and inform Council Command we're en route. Jack, set course for those coordinates, maximum speed. Sir, Maria spoke up. We're not a warship. We'll be facing actual military vessels. We're a Council ship responding to a Council emergency, Tom replied firmly. Just like with the pirates, but on a larger scale. The pirates were one thing, Mike said. But the Drachnor, they're supposed to be decades ahead of everyone technologically. Tom stood up, looking at each crew member in turn. Then they won't be expecting what we bring to the fight. We've spent 2 months improving this ship, adding systems no one else has thought of combining. We might not be the strongest ship in the fleet, but we're definitely the most surprising. His confidence was infectious, and the crew turned to their stations with renewed purpose. Jack, how long to reach Sector 12? Tom asked. 18 hours at maximum safe speed, sir. Make it 15, Tom said. Mike, I know you've been holding back some power in reserve. Time to see what this core can really do. Mike grinned. Yes, sir. I'll give you 15 hours, but I'll need to run some special cooling protocols. Do whatever you need to. Maria, I want you to run combat simulations with every modification we've made. Find new ways to use what we have. Already thinking of a few ideas, Captain, she replied. The Phoenix pushed through space faster than it had ever gone before, the old ship's frame creaking under the strain. But the human reinforcements held, and the modified power core performed flawlessly under Mike's careful management. 15 hours later, they dropped out of FTL at the designated coordinates. The scene that greeted them was organized chaos. Nearly 100 council ships of various sizes had formed a defensive line, facing a distant cluster of dark, angular vessels, the Drachmer fleet. We're being hailed, Wren announced. It's the command ship. Admiral Korv's face appeared on screen. His ridged features showed surprise when he saw the human captain. Earth Vessel Phoenix, he said. I was not expecting your type of ship in this response fleet. We received the same call as everyone else. Admiral, Tom replied respectfully. The Phoenix is reporting for duty. The Admiral seemed to struggle with this for a moment, then nodded curtly. Very well. Take position in the tertiary response group. Section D. Those are support vessels and medical ships. You'll be safely behind the main battle line. Tom frowned. With respect, Admiral, we've proven effective in combat situations. Against pirates, Captain Miller. This is a military engagement against a technologically superior enemy. Your creative modifications will not be relevant here. Take your assigned position. Korv out. As the transmission ended, Tom turned to his crew. They looked disappointed but not surprised. Well, Maria said, at least we'll have a good view of the battle. Tom sat in his chair, thinking. Then he turned to Wren. Open a channel to all council ships. Sir. Wren looked confused. I don't have authority to broadcast fleet-wide. Then find a way, Tom insisted. This is important. Wren worked at her console for a few moments. I can piggyback on the fleet's tactical update frequency. It's not quite fleet-wide, but most combat vessels will receive it. Do it. When she nodded, Tom spoke clearly and confidently. This is Captain Tom Miller of the Earth ship Phoenix. We've analyzed the Drachmer vessels, and we've detected a potential weakness in their configuration. Request permission to approach and gather more detailed scans. There was a moment of silence. Then Admiral Korv's angry voice came through. Captain Miller, get off this channel immediately. You have no authority to. Admiral. Tom interrupted. With respect, humans have a unique perspective that might help here. The Drachmer ships are arranged in a standard defense pattern, but their energy signatures suggest they're using a synchronized shield system. If that's true, there might be a way to disrupt it. A new voice joined the channel. This is Captain Lorne of the Steadfast. What kind of disruption are you suggesting, human? Before Korv could object again, Tom continued quickly. The synchronized shields will have a resonance frequency. If we can identify it and broadcast a counter frequency, we might be able to create temporary gaps in their defenses. There was a thoughtful silence. Then Captain Lorne spoke again. Admiral, the human's theory is sound. The Drachmer are known for their synchronized systems. Admiral Korv growled in frustration. Fine. Captain Miller, you have 10 minutes to approach and scan. But at the first sign of danger, you will retreat immediately. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Admiral. Phoenix out. Tom turned to his crew with a determined smile. Jack, take us forward. Slow approach. Wren, prepare all sensors for detailed scans. Maria, be ready with those shield doors. As the Phoenix moved ahead of the Council defense line, Tom leaned forward in his chair. They put us in the back because they think we're just scrap, he said quietly. Time to show them what scrap can do. The mismatched ship moved steadily toward the intimidating Draknor fleet, looking like a civilian transport that had taken a wrong turn into a military standoff. But inside, the crew of the Phoenix was ready to face their greatest challenge yet, and perhaps change the course of an interstellar war. The Phoenix drifted closer to the Draknor fleet, looking harmless and insignificant against the backdrop of the imposing enemy warships. These alien vessels were unlike anything the humans had seen before. Sleek, angular, and completely black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Each ship was nearly identical, moving in perfect coordination like parts of a single organism. "Keep us on a lazy approach vector," Tom instructed Jack. "Like we're just a curious transport that doesn't know any better." "They're scanning us, Captain," Wren reported from her station. "Standard identification sweep." "Let them look," Tom replied calmly. "All they'll see is a patched-together ship that isn't worth their attention." The Phoenix continued its casual approach. Behind them, the Council fleet waited in tense formation, many captains questioning the wisdom of letting the human vessel take point. "Captain," Wren said suddenly, "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns between the Draknor ships. They're pulsing in sequence, like they're talking to each other." Tom leaned forward. "Can you isolate the frequency?" Wren's fingers flew over her console. "Working on it. It's complex, not like any communication system I've seen before." "Sir," Maria interrupted from tactical, "I think they've noticed us. 2 smaller vessels are breaking formation." Tom nodded. "Mike, ready on power core adjustments. Maria, shield doors on standby. But don't deploy yet. We don't want to look threatening." The 2 Draknor ships moved with graceful precision, approaching the Phoenix from both sides. "They're charging weapons," Maria warned, tension in her voice. "Hold steady," Tom ordered. "Wren, what do you have?" "I've isolated the pattern," she replied excitedly. "It's not just communication, it's their shield synchronization. Each ship is generating only part of a larger shield bubble. Together, they create an overlapping defense that's much stronger than individual shields." "Exactly what we suspected," Tom said. "Can we disrupt it?" "Maybe," Wren said, her hands still working. "If we broadcast a counter-frequency." She was cut off as the 2 Draknor ships fired, their weapons sending bright purple energy beams toward the Phoenix. "Shield doors, now," Tom ordered. Maria activated their makeshift defense system, but even with the modified doors in place, the impact rocked the ship violently. "Damage to sections 3 and 5, Mike reported. "Door shields held, but they're already overheating. We can't take many more hits like that." Tom made a quick decision. "Time to show our hand. Jack, evasive maneuvers, the garbage chute special." Jack grinned and input a series of commands. The Phoenix suddenly began tumbling in a seemingly uncontrolled spin, venting atmosphere in carefully timed bursts that sent it careening between the 2 Draknor vessels. The enemy ships tried to track them, but the erratic movement pattern, one that would make any proper military pilot sick, confused their targeting systems. "Wren, broadcast that counter-frequency now, full power," Tom called out over the noise of straining metal. "Broadcasting on all channels." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like ripples spreading across water, visible disruptions appeared across the energy fields connecting the Draknor ships. "It's working," Wren exclaimed. "Their shield synchronization is faltering." Tom hit the ship-wide comm. "All hands, brace for impact." Then to Jack, "Take us straight through their line, between those 2 cruisers." The Phoenix stopped its wild tumbling and shot forward, aiming for a gap in the Draknor formation, where the shield disruption was strongest. "Sir, if their shields come back online while we're passing through," Maria warned. "They won't," Tom said with confidence he didn't entirely feel. "Mike, divert all power to engines and Wren's broadcast. Maria, be ready with everything we've got once we're through." The Phoenix accelerated, its mismatched hull creaking under the strain. The gap between the Draknor ships loomed ahead. a space that would normally be protected by their synchronized shields. Counter-frequency still holding, Wren reported. Shield disruption at 67%. Draknor vessels trying to adjust, Maria added. They're firing again. Energy beams lanced out from multiple ships, but the Phoenix was moving too quickly now, and the disrupted coordination between Draknor vessels made their shots uncharacteristically inaccurate. 5 seconds to gap, Jack called out. 4, 3, 2, 1. The Phoenix shot through the opening in the Draknor line, emerging on the other side of their formation. For a split second, there was silence on the bridge as everyone realized they'd made it through. "We did it," Jack shouted. "Not yet," Tom said, his eyes fixed on the view screen. "Wren, open a channel to the Council fleet. Maria, deploy all mining lasers and prepare the cargo magnetizers." "Channel open," Wren confirmed. "Admiral Corv, this is the Phoenix," Tom announced. "We've successfully disrupted the Draknor shield synchronization. Their rear is exposed. Attack now." Without waiting for a response, Tom turned to Maria. "Target their command ship. Full power to all our non-weapons." The Draknor were scrambling to reform their perfectly coordinated defense, but the disruption had thrown their systems into disarray. The Phoenix fired its modified mining lasers at the largest enemy vessel, the concentrated beams cutting through the now unprotected hull. At the same time, the Council fleet responded to Tom's call, dozens of warships charging forward to exploit the weakness the humans had created. "It's working," Maria said in wonder. "The Council ships are breaking through." The battle transformed in minutes. Without their synchronized shields, the Draknor lost their greatest advantage. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos as they tried to defend against attacks from both the Phoenix at their rear and the Council fleet at their front. "Draknor vessels are powering up their engines," Wren reported. "They're preparing to retreat." "Not all of them," Maria warned. 3 ships on intercept course with us." Tom nodded calmly. "They've figured out we're the source of the disruption. Mike, how much more can you give the broadcast?" "We're already redlining, Captain," Mike replied, his hands dancing across his controls. "Core temperature rising dangerously." "Push it further," Tom ordered. "Wren, modulate the frequency. Make it harder for them to adapt." "Jack, evasive pattern delta." The Phoenix spun away from the approaching Draknor ships, still broadcasting the shield-disrupting signal at maximum power. The 3 enemy vessels pursued, firing repeatedly. "Hull breach in Section 8. Mike called out. "Sealing now." "Shield doors failing on starboard side," Maria added. The situation was growing desperate when Admiral Corv's voice came through the comm. "Earth vessel Phoenix, break off your attack. Council reinforcements incoming." True to his word, 5 Council warships appeared, placing themselves between the Phoenix and the pursuing Draknor vessels. "This is your chance to withdraw, Captain Miller," Corv said, his tone still stern but with a new note of respect. "You've done enough." Tom looked at his crew, exhausted, some bleeding from minor injuries, but all still at their posts. "Thank you, Admiral." Phoenix withdrawing. He turned to Jack. "Get us to a safe distance." As they pulled away, the view screen showed the Draknor fleet in full retreat, with Council ships in pursuit. What had seemed like an unwinnable battle just hours ago had turned in their favor. In the aftermath, as emergency repairs were underway, Admiral Corv himself came aboard the Phoenix. He walked through the ship with obvious curiosity, studying the jury-rigged systems and makeshift modifications. "I must admit, Captain Miller," he said finally, "when I first saw this vessel, I thought it was an insult to include it in a military operation." Tom smiled slightly. "Many have underestimated us, Admiral." "A mistake I won't make again," Corv replied. "The Council will receive my full report on how your unconventional tactics turned the tide of this battle." After the Admiral left, Tom gathered his crew in the garden. The plants had been damaged in the fight, but like everything else on the Phoenix, They were already being repaired and would grow back stronger. Today we proved something important, Tom told his weary but proud crew. Not just to the Council or the Drachner, but to ourselves. He touched a damaged panel, feeling the worn metal beneath his fingers. They gave us scrap, he said softly, and told us it was all we deserved. But we didn't just make it work. We made it extraordinary. We made it human. Maria raised an improvised cup of Mike's engine room brew. To the Phoenix, she said, the most dangerous scrap heap in the galaxy. To the Phoenix, they all echoed, their voices filling the garden. As their celebration continued, news was already spreading throughout Council space. Tales of the odd human ship that looked like junk, but fought like nothing ever seen before. A ship that had faced the mighty Drachner and emerged victorious. They had been given scrap. They had built a legend. And the galaxy would never be the same. The space between Mars and Jupiter was usually quiet, empty except for the occasional asteroid or automated mining vessel. But today, something else floated in that vast darkness. A lone warship, its hull bearing the scars of countless battles. The U.S. Dauntless wasn't supposed to be alone out here. Just 2 weeks ago, it had been part of Earth's proud defense fleet of 30 ships. Now, it was all that remained. Captain James Miller stood at his usual spot on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the stars through the main viewport. He was tall and strong, though the recent battles had left dark circles under his eyes. His black uniform was clean and pressed. He believed in keeping up appearances, especially in hard times. The crew needed to see their captain at his best. The bridge was quieter than usual. Everyone felt the weight of their situation. They were the last ship, the final line of defense between Earth and the alien fleet that had destroyed their companions. The Centauri Collective, as they called themselves, had appeared 3 months ago with demands for Earth to surrender. When Earth refused, they attacked. Another status report, Lieutenant Thompson, Miller ordered, his voice steady and calm. Emma Thompson looked up from her sensor station, her fingers moving quickly over the glowing display. She was young but skilled, one of the best sensor operators in the fleet. All systems are running at 90%, sir. We've almost finished repairs from the last battle. Miller nodded. The Dauntless had taken heavy damage in the fight that had cost them their last sister ship, the Valiant. The memory of watching the Valiant explode still haunted him. Captain Anderson had been a good friend. Engineering reports the new power couplings are holding steady, called out Chief Engineer Robert Walsh from his station. Walsh was an older man with gray hair and hands that showed years of working with machines. But I still don't trust them. They're not as good as the originals. They'll have to do, Chief, Miller replied. They all knew they were working with whatever they could salvage or repair. Supply lines back to Earth were stretched thin, and most of their repair stations had been destroyed. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each person monitoring their stations. Besides Miller, Thompson, and Walsh, there was Communications Officer David Turner, a quiet man who could decode enemy transmissions faster than any computer, and Weapons Officer Maria Rodriguez, whose quick thinking had saved them more than once in recent battles. The quiet was broken by a sudden beep from Thompson's station. She sat up straighter, her hands flying over the controls. Captain, multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Her voice carried a mix of fear and determination. They're big, sir, really big. Miller moved to her station, looking at the readings himself. His expression remained calm, but inside, his heart was racing. The signatures were massive, bigger than anything they'd seen before. How many? Thompson's voice was barely a whisper. Initial count shows 237 ships, sir. And those are just the ones big enough to register at this distance. The bridge fell silent. 237 ships, against one. Show me, Miller ordered, and Thompson transferred the data to the main view screen. The tactical display lit up with red dots, each one representing an enemy vessel. They were arranged in the Centauri's favorite attack formation, a massive sphere that could close in from all directions. Miller returned to his command chair, his mind racing through options. They could try to run, but the Centauri ships were faster. They could call for help, but there was no help left to call. Earth's remaining defenses were needed to protect the planet itself. "Sir," Turner called from his station, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead Centauri vessel." "Put it through." The view screen changed to show a Centauri commander. Like all their species, it had gray-blue skin and large, dark eyes. When it spoke, its words were translated by the ship's computer into English. "Human vessel." The alien's voice was cold and mechanical through the translator. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Your species has fought well, but this is the end. Surrender your ship, and we will spare your crew. Continue to resist, and we will destroy you." Miller looked around at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, yes, but he also saw determination. They all knew what was at stake. If the Dauntless fell, there would be nothing between this fleet and Earth except the planet's own defenses, which wouldn't be enough against a force this size. What the Centauri commander didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the Dauntless wasn't just another warship. In the months leading up to the war, Earth scientists had developed something new, something dangerous, something that had been installed on the Dauntless as a last resort. They called it the Phoenix system. It was a revolutionary weapons platform that could absorb enemy fire and redirect it back at the attackers. The system had been deemed too unstable for mass production. The first test ship had exploded during trials. But desperate times had called for desperate measures, and the Dauntless had been chosen to carry the only working prototype. They hadn't used it yet. The power requirements were enormous, and the risks were high. But now, facing an enemy fleet that outnumbered them more than 200 to 1, Miller knew it was time. He pressed a button on his chair, opening a channel to all decks. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. You all can see what we're facing. The Centauri have brought their biggest fleet yet, and they think they have us cornered. They think we'll surrender." He paused, letting his words sink in. But they don't know who they're dealing with. They don't know what this ship can do. And most importantly, they don't know the courage of this crew. Miller stood up, his voice growing stronger. "We are the last line of defense between these aliens and our home. Behind us lies Earth, our families, everything we've ever known and loved. I won't lie to you. What we're about to do is dangerous. But I believe in this ship. I believe in this crew. And I believe that today, we're going to show the Centauri why they should have never attacked Earth in the first place." The crew straightened in their seats, inspired by their captain's words. Miller turned to Walsh. "Chief, begin power-up sequence for the Phoenix system." Walsh nodded, his fingers already moving over his console. "Aye, Captain. Diverting power now." Miller turned back to Turner. "Send our response to the Centauri commander." "Ready, sir." Miller smiled, a hard, determined expression that would have made any enemy worry. "Tell them, come and get us." The message was sent, and for a moment, everything was quiet. Then the space around the Dauntless lit up as hundreds of Centauri ships opened fire, their energy weapons turning the darkness of space into a blazing inferno of destruction. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the crew of the Dauntless was ready to make history. The first shots from the Centauri fleet lit up space like 1,000 suns. Energy beams of red and purple streaked through the darkness, all aimed at the lone human ship. The crew of the Dauntless braced themselves, many closing their eyes, expecting these moments to be their last. But Captain Miller kept his eyes open, watching as the enemy fire approached. Deep within the ship, the experimental Phoenix system began to hum. The sound started low, barely noticeable, then grew until it vibrated through every deck. The hull of the Dauntless, scared and battered from previous battles, began to glow with a soft blue light. "Phoenix system powering up," Chief Engineer Walsh reported from his station, his voice tense. "Power levels rising, 30%, 50%. His eyes widened as he watched the readings. "Sir, we're getting energy readings I've never seen before." The enemy fire struck the Dauntless, but instead of tearing through the hull, something amazing happened. The blue glow intensified, and the energy beams seemed to sink into the ship's armor. Where they hit, the blue light pulsed and swirled like living things. Lieutenant Thompson stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. "Captain, the ship it's absorbing the enemy fire, all of it." Miller nodded, though even he was surprised by how well the system was working. During the secret testing phase, they had only managed to absorb the power of 2 or 3 ships at once. Now they were taking fire from hundreds, and the Phoenix system was handling it. The hull temperature began to rise. Deck plates grew warm under the crew's feet, and the air became humid as the environmental systems struggled to handle the heat. Warning lights flashed across every console, but the ship held together. "Engineering report," Miller called out, steadying himself as the ship shuddered under another wave of enemy fire. Walsh's fingers danced across his controls, making constant adjustments. "The Phoenix system is performing beyond all expectations, sir. It's like..." He paused, searching for the right words. "It's like the system is learning, adapting to the enemy weapons. Power absorption is at 150% of maximum rated capacity and still climbing." On the main view screen, they could see the Centauri fleet had stopped firing. The alien ships hung in space, seemingly confused by what they were witnessing. No one had ever survived such a massive attack before, let alone absorbed it. Communications Officer Turner's console lit up. "Sir, we're getting multiple transmissions from the enemy fleet. They're talking to each other, trying to figure out what's happening. They sound scared." Miller allowed himself a small smile. Fear was good. Fear meant the aliens were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The Dauntless now glowed like a blue star, its hull crackling with absorbed energy. The power readings were off the scale, far beyond anything the scientists who designed the system had thought possible. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship as systems struggled to contain the massive amount of energy. "Hull temperature critical," Thompson reported, her voice rising. "If we take much more, we'll start to melt." Miller knew it was time. They couldn't absorb any more energy, but they could use what they had gathered. Weapons Officer Rodriguez, "Is the targeting system integrated with the Phoenix?" Rodriguez nodded, her hands already moving over her controls. "Yes, sir. The system is giving me firing solutions for every ship in the enemy fleet. We can hit them all at once if we want to." That was another surprise. The Phoenix system was supposed to only be able to target a few ships at a time. But somehow, like Walsh had said, it seemed to be adapting, growing stronger, becoming more than its designers had intended. "Sir," Walsh called out, his voice urgent. "The power levels are becoming unstable. We need to release the energy soon, or the system might overload." Miller stood from his chair, his decision made. "Target their command ships first, then work your way out to the smaller vessels. Fire when ready." Rodriguez took a deep breath, then pressed the firing control. The Dauntless shuddered, and for a moment, everything went quiet. Then the ship released its stored energy in a massive burst of blue-white fire. The blast split into hundreds of smaller beams, each one carrying the power of multiple nuclear weapons. The Centauri ships tried to evade, but the targeting was perfect. The first beam struck their lead ship, cutting through its shields like they weren't even there. The massive vessel exploded in a ball of plasma that lit up space brighter than any sun. More beams followed, each finding its target. Centauri ships exploded one after another, their own weapons fire turned against them with devastating effect. The aliens tried to return fire, but the Phoenix system absorbed their shots, adding even more power to its next blast. "Enemy fleet is in chaos," Thompson reported excitedly. "They're breaking formation, trying to retreat." The bridge crew watched in amazement as the mighty Centauri armada fell apart. Ships collided with each other in their panic to escape, while others disappeared into hyperspace, fleeing the battle entirely. In less than 5 minutes, the battle had turned completely around. Through it all, Miller stood calmly on his bridge, directing his crew with the same steady authority he always showed. "Keep firing, Rodriguez. Don't let up until they're gone or destroyed." The Dauntless continued its attack, its blue fire cutting through space, destroying or driving away every Centauri ship in range. The aliens had come expecting an easy victory over a single human vessel. Instead, they found themselves facing something they had never seen before, a ship that could turn their own power against them. Finally, after what seemed like hours but was really only minutes, the space around the Dauntless was clear except for floating debris and the retreating engines of the few Centauri ships that had managed to escape. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat, sir," Thompson reported, her voice filled with pride. "Only 23 ships managed to escape. The rest are either destroyed or disabled." Miller nodded, then turned to Walsh. "Status of the Phoenix system." The chief engineer shook his head in wonder. "It's already cooling down, sir. The system handled everything perfectly. It's like..." He paused, checking his readings again. "It's like it was designed for exactly this kind of battle." Miller looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of amazement and pride on all their faces. They had just accomplished something impossible. One ship had stood against an armada and won. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered Turner. Tell them the Phoenix has risen, and the enemy has learned to fear its fire." As the Dauntless hung in space, its hull slowly cooling from its incredible display of power, the crew knew they had just changed the course of the war. The Centauri would think twice before attacking Earth again, and the legend of the ship that could not be destroyed was about to spread throughout the galaxy. The victory over the Centauri fleet had come at a cost. The Dauntless drifted in space, its hull still cooling from the massive energy discharge. Warning lights flashed across every control panel as the crew worked to stabilize their damaged systems. They had won the battle, but the ship needed repairs. Captain Miller watched from his command chair as damage reports came in from all decks. The experimental Phoenix system had worked better than anyone had expected, but it had pushed the ship to its limits. Some of the hull plates had partially melted, and several power conduits had burned out completely. "Engineering, what's our status?" Miller called out, his voice showing no sign of the exhaustion he felt after the intense battle. Chief Engineer Walsh looked up from his station, his face streaked with grease from where he'd been working on repairs. "The good news is the Phoenix system is still intact, sir. The bad news is we've burned out most of our power relays. We're running on backup systems right now." Before Miller could respond, Lieutenant Thompson's sensor station started beeping urgently. Her hands flew over the controls as she checked the readings. "Captain, more hyperspace signatures detected." Her voice carried a note of panic. "They're coming from a different direction this time." The crew froze. They had just fought off one Centauri fleet, and their ship was in no condition for another battle. Miller moved quickly to Thompson's station. "How many?" "At least 300 ships, sir. Bigger than the last fleet." Thompson's voice shook slightly. "They'll be here in less than 10 minutes." Miller's mind raced. The Phoenix system had worked once, but could it work again in the ship's damaged state? He turned to Walsh. "Chief, can we get the Phoenix operational in time?" Walsh shook his head. "The system itself is working, but we don't have enough power. Most of our energy cells were drained in the last battle. We need at least 30 minutes to recharge to fighting capacity." They didn't have 30 minutes. Miller looked at his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes. They had accomplished the impossible once today, but now they were being asked to do it again. "Options?" Miller asked, looking around the bridge. "I'll take any ideas right now." Weapons Officer Rodriguez spoke up from her station. "Sir, we still have some energy stored in the Phoenix system from the last battle. Not much, but maybe we could use it differently this time." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Rodriguez's fingers moved over her console, bringing up a tactical display. The system absorbs so much energy that even our leftovers are significant. Instead of trying to fight the whole fleet, we could use what we have to create a massive energy pulse, something big enough to disrupt their hyperspace approach. It was a dangerous idea. Disrupting hyperspace could have unpredictable effects. Ships could be thrown off course, destroyed, or even lost in spacetime. But they were out of options. "Walsh, is it possible?" Miller asked. The chief engineer did some quick calculations on his console. "Maybe. We'd have to modify the Phoenix system to release all its energy at once, in every direction. It's never been tested that way. Could tear the ship apart." Miller nodded grimly. "Better than letting Earth fall to the Centauri." He pressed a button on his chair, opening a channel to all decks. "All hands, this is the captain. In about 8 minutes, we're going to try something that's either brilliant or suicidal. Secure all stations and brace for possible structural failure." The crew moved quickly, securing loose equipment and strapping themselves into their seats. In engineering, Walsh and his team worked frantically to modify the Phoenix system for its new task. Every second counted. "Enemy fleet approaching," Thompson called out. 7 minutes to hyperspace exit. Miller watched the tactical display as hundreds of red dots moved closer to their position. The Centauri had learned from their last defeat and were bringing an even bigger force. But size wouldn't matter if Rodriguez's plan worked. 6 minutes. In engineering, sparks flew as Walsh's team made the final connections. The Phoenix system hummed differently now, a higher pitch that made everyone's teeth ache. 5 minutes. Rodriguez worked at her weapons station, programming the energy pulse. They would only get one shot at this. If it failed, there would be no time for a second attempt. 4 minutes. The hull of the Dauntless began to glow again, but this time the blue light was different. It pulsed in waves, moving from the bow to the stern and back again, like a heartbeat. 3 minutes. Warning alarms blared as the ship's computers detected the growing energy buildup. The Phoenix system was never designed to release its power all at once like this. The ship groaned as its structure was stressed in new ways. 2 minutes. Miller gripped the arms of his command chair. "Status of the pulse. Energy levels at maximum safe limits," Walsh reported, "which were about to exceed by a lot." 1 minute. The bridge crew could see the hyperspace distortions now, massive tears in space where the Centauri fleet would emerge. 300 ships, all appearing at once, ready to destroy the damaged human vessel. 30 seconds. The hull temperature was rising again. Warning lights flashed red across every console as the ship's systems protested the enormous energy buildup. 15 seconds. Miller took a deep breath. "On my mark, Rodriguez." 10 seconds. The hyperspace tiers grew larger. They could see the shapes of Centauri ships beginning to emerge. 5 seconds. "All hands, brace for impact," Miller shouted. "Fire the pulse." Rodriguez pressed the firing control. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the Dauntless unleashed all its stored energy in a single massive burst. The pulse expanded outward in a perfect sphere of blue-white fire, moving faster than any normal weapon. The pulse hit the hyperspace tiers just as the Centauri ships were emerging. The effect was immediate and devastating. The tiers distorted, twisted, and collapsed. Centauri ships were caught half in and half out of hyperspace, their hulls twisting in impossible ways as space itself warped around them. The bridge crew watched in awe as the mighty alien fleet was torn apart not by weapons, but by the very fabric of space-time. Ships vanished, were crushed, or exploded as their hyperspace drives overloaded. Those that managed to fully emerge from hyperspace were thrown off course, colliding with each other in a cascade of destruction. The Dauntless shuddered violently as the pulse's aftereffects washed over it. Systems failed across the ship, and for a moment, it seemed like they had pushed their luck too far. But the tough little ship held together, proving once again why it had been chosen for the Phoenix system. When the chaos finally ended, the space around them was empty except for debris. The entire Centauri fleet had been destroyed or scattered across several light-years of space. Miller looked around at his stunned crew. Damage report. Walsh checked his readings. The Phoenix system is completely drained, sir. We'll need major repairs before we can use it again. But we're alive. Miller nodded. They had survived again, and in doing so, had discovered yet another way to use their incredible weapon. The Centauri would think twice before sending another fleet through hyperspace to attack Earth. Send word to Earth Command, Miller ordered. Tell them the Phoenix doesn't just rise from the ashes. Sometimes it creates them. 2 days had passed since the Dauntless had scattered the second Centauri fleet. The ship hung in space near the asteroid belt, its crew working around the clock to repair the damage from their last desperate battle. The hull still showed signs of stress from the massive energy pulse they had released, and many systems were running on backup power. Captain Miller stood in engineering, watching as Chief Engineer Walsh directed repairs. The Phoenix system lay partially disassembled around them, its components spread across several workstations as the engineering team tried to understand what had happened during the battle. It's amazing, sir, Walsh said, holding up a piece of the system's core. The technology didn't just work as designed. It evolved. These crystals have changed their structure. They've adapted to handle more power than we thought possible. Miller examined the crystal. It glowed faintly blue, pulsing in time with the ship's power system. Can we use it again? Walsh nodded slowly. Yes, but it's different now. The system has learned, for lack of a better word. It's not the same weapon we started with. Before Miller could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain to the bridge, emergency. Lieutenant Thompson's voice was urgent. Miller ran to the bridge, his heart racing. Had the Centauri returned? But when he arrived, he found his crew staring at the main view screen with expressions of wonder rather than fear. The screen showed a massive fleet approaching their position. But these weren't Centauri ships. The designs were completely different, sleeker, more organic-looking, with hulls that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Unknown fleet approaching, Thompson reported. Over 500 ships, but they're not Centauri. They're not matching any known designs in our database. Communications Officer Turner's console lit up with activity. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, in multiple languages. Put it through, Miller ordered, settling into his command chair. The view screen changed to show an alien bridge, but not like any they had seen before. The new aliens were tall and elegant, with silvery skin and eyes that seemed to shimmer with different colors. When their leader spoke, their words were translated smoothly into English. Defenders of Earth, we have witnessed your battles. We have seen how one ship stood against many, how you turned the enemy's strength against them. We are the Aldari Alliance, and we have come to offer our help. Miller exchanged glances with his crew. They had heard rumors of the Aldari, an ancient race that rarely involved themselves in the conflicts of younger species. Some said they were the first race to achieve faster-than-light travel, that their technology was centuries ahead of everyone else's. Why would you help us? Miller asked carefully. In his experience, offers that seemed too good to be true usually were. The Aldari leader's expression showed something like approval. A wise question. We help because we have watched your species for a long time. We watched as you developed your technology, as you reached for the stars. The Centauri attacked you because they feared what you might become. They were right to fear, but wrong to attack. The leader gestured, and the view screen split to show technical diagrams. Your Phoenix system. It is crude by our standards, but it shows remarkable potential. You took the basic principles of energy absorption and created something new, something that could evolve and adapt. This is the mark of a species that deserves to survive. Miller studied the diagrams. They showed modifications to the Phoenix system, improvements that would make it more stable, more powerful. You're offering to help us improve our weapons. We offer more than that, the Aldari leader replied. We offer an alliance. The Centauri have dominated this sector of space for too long, crushing younger races before they can reach their potential. We believe it is time for that to change. As if to emphasize the point, long-range sensors detected new contacts. Thompson's hands flew over her controls. Captain, multiple Centauri fleets detected, approaching from different directions. They've gathered every ship they have for one final attack. The Aldari leader didn't seem concerned. They'd bring nearly 2,000 ships. They hope to overwhelm you with numbers, to destroy the Phoenix system before other races can copy it. Will you accept our help? Miller looked at his crew. They had fought impossible odds before and won, but this was different. Even with the Phoenix system, they couldn't fight 2,000 ships alone. He made his decision. We accept your alliance, he said firmly. The Aldari leader nodded, and suddenly the Dauntless's systems came alive with new energy. The Phoenix system hummed with power as Aldari technology merged with it, improving and stabilizing its functions. Chief, Miller called to engineering. What's happening down there? Walsh's voice was filled with excitement. Sir, the Aldari modifications are incredible. The Phoenix system is now operating at 500% efficiency. Power curve is stable, all systems nominal. We're ready to fight. The Centauri fleets emerged from hyperspace, their ships filling space around them. But this time, they faced not just one human ship, but the combined forces of humanity and the Aldari alliance. Enemy ships opening fire, Thompson reported. Miller smiled. This time, they were ready. Return fire with everything we have. Show them why they should have left Earth alone. The Dauntless's hull began to glow, but now the blue light was shot through with silver streaks. Aldari technology working in harmony with human innovation. As the Centauri weapons fire approached, the Phoenix system absorbed it more efficiently than ever before. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. The Dauntless, powered by its improved Phoenix system, became a focal point of the fight. It absorbed enemy fire and redirected it with pinpoint accuracy, while the Aldari fleet moved with impossible grace, their advanced weapons cutting through Centauri defenses like they weren't even there. Enemy fleet breaking formation, Thompson called out excitedly. They're retreating. Miller watched as the mighty Centauri armada fell into chaos. Ships fled in every direction, their carefully planned attack dissolving into a panicked rout. The few ships that stood their ground were quickly destroyed by the combined fire of human and Aldari weapons. When it was over, the Dauntless had proven itself once again. But more importantly, humanity had gained powerful allies. The Aldari leader's final words to them summed up what they had accomplished. Today marks a new chapter in the history of this galaxy. The Centauri's reign of terror is ended, and a new alliance is born. Remember this day, humans of Earth, for it is not just a victory in battle, but a step toward a greater future for all species. Miller looked at his crew, seeing pride and hope in their faces. They had started this fight alone, one ship against an empire. They would finish it as part of something bigger, something that would change the galaxy forever. The Phoenix system hummed contentedly, its power now stabilized by Aldari technology. It had evolved beyond its original design, just as humanity had evolved beyond its original role in the galaxy. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since the war began, it looked bright. 1 month had passed since the great battle that changed the galaxy. The U.S. Dauntless glided smoothly through space, its hull now a perfect blend of human and Aldari technology. The scars from its previous battles had been repaired, but Captain Miller had insisted on keeping one small scratch near the bridge window, a reminder of how close they had come to defeat and how far they had traveled since then. The ship was different now. The Phoenix system had been completely rebuilt with Aldari help, transforming it from an experimental weapon into something that had never existed before. The blue glow that had once shone only during battle now pulsed constantly through special channels in the hull, a visible sign of the power that flowed through the ship. Miller stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger in the main view screen. They were returning home after a long mission, escorting Aldari ships to former Centauri worlds, helping to free planets that had been under alien control for generations. It felt good to be the liberators instead of the defenders. Message from Earth Command. Sir, Turner called from his communication station. They're organizing a ceremony. Apparently, every news network in the solar system wants to interview the crew that changed the course of the war. Miller smiled slightly. Tell them we'll be there, but the Dauntless needs to make one stop first. The crew knew where they were going. It had become a tradition over the past month. Before each return to Earth, they visited the place where it all began, the space between Mars and Jupiter, where they had first stood alone against the Centauri fleet. Approaching coordinates, Lieutenant Thompson reported from her sensor station. The space around them was clear now, but floating debris still marked the site of that first incredible battle. Memorial Beacon is active and transmitting. The beacon had been placed there by Earth Command, marking the spot where one ship had dared to stand against an armada. Its message was simple. Here, humanity learned it was stronger than it knew. As they passed the beacon, Chief Engineer Walsh's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Captain, you might want to see this. The Phoenix system is doing something new again. Miller made his way to engineering, where he found Walsh and his team gathered around the system's core. The crystals that powered the Phoenix system were glowing brighter than usual, and their pattern had changed. It's like it recognizes where we are, Walsh explained, showing Miller the readings. The system has evolved so much that sometimes I think it's almost alive. The Aldari say they've never seen anything like it. That was high praise from a race that had mastered energy manipulation centuries ago. The Aldari scientists who had helped improve the Phoenix system had been amazed by how it had adapted and grown. They said it showed them that humanity had untapped potential they hadn't suspected. Miller's comm unit beeped. Captain. Thompson's voice was excited. Multiple ships approaching. It's the Aldari diplomatic fleet. And, sir, you're not going to believe who's with them. When Miller returned to the bridge, he found his crew staring at the view screen in amazement. Alongside the silver ships of their Aldari allies were vessels of dozens of different designs. Some were organic-looking, others geometric, and a few seemed to bend the light around them in impossible ways. We're receiving a transmission from the Aldari flagship, Turner reported. They say this is the first meeting of the new Galactic Council, and they want the Dauntless to lead them to Earth. Miller sat in his command chair, taking in the historic moment. The Aldari had told them this might happen. The defeat of the Centauri had created a power vacuum in the galaxy, and younger races that had been dominated by them were now free to choose their own path. Many had asked to join the alliance that Earth and the Aldari had formed. Sir, Walsh called from engineering. The Phoenix system is reacting to the alien ships. It's trying to communicate with them. The blue glow in the ship's hull brightened, sending out pulses of energy that the alien vessels seemed to respond to. Each ship began to glow with its own unique energy signature, creating a spectacular light show in space. The Aldari say this is perfect. Turner translated from the incoming messages. They say it shows that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, but our ability to bring different species together. Miller thought about how far they had come. Just a month ago, they had been alone, fighting desperately to protect Earth. Now they were at the center of a new alliance that would reshape the galaxy. Message from the Aldari flagship, Turner announced. Their leader wants to speak to the crew. The familiar face of the Aldari leader appeared on the screen, their color-shifting eyes showing what seemed to be pride. Crew of the Dauntless, you stand at a turning point in history. The ships you see around you represent 20 different species, all of whom have chosen to join our alliance. They came not because of our power or technology, but because of the example you set. The leader continued. One ship, against impossible odds, showed the galaxy that determination and courage could overcome any obstacle. You proved that a younger race could stand up to an empire and win. But more importantly, you showed wisdom in victory, choosing to help free others rather than seek revenge or power for yourselves. Miller looked around at his crew, seeing the pride in their faces. They had earned this moment, every one of them. The Phoenix system was just the beginning, the Aldari leader said. Already, our combined scientists are discovering new possibilities by studying how it evolved. But the real Phoenix that rose from the ashes of war was not a weapons system. It was hope. Hope for a galaxy where different species could work together, could learn from each other, could build something greater than any one race could achieve alone. As if to emphasize the point, the Dauntless's Phoenix system pulsed again, and the alien ships responded with their own energy signatures. The patterns merged and danced in space, creating something new and beautiful. "Take us home," Miller ordered, his voice firm and proud. "Let's show Earth what their one ship helped create." The Dauntless moved forward, its improved engines humming smoothly. Behind it, the fleet of alien ships fell into formation, following the lead of the small human vessel that had changed everything. As they passed the memorial beacon, its message seemed more true than ever. Earth grew larger in their view screen, and Miller could see other ships rising from the planet to meet them, more human vessels, now equipped with their own versions of the Phoenix system. The technology had been shared with Earth's fleet, each ship's system evolving in its own unique way. "Send a message to Earth Command," Miller said to Turner. Tell them the Dauntless is coming home, and we're bringing the future with us." The ship's Phoenix system pulsed one final time, as if agreeing with its captain's words. They had started this journey as one ship trying to defend its home. They were ending it as part of something much bigger, a legend that would be remembered as long as ships sailed between the stars.